everyone, Anna here, makeup creator, teacher, and educator specifically for people with hooded eyes, as well as people with textured and oily skin, and also probably the luckiest girl ever because I just received the new Natasha Denona Mini Rose palette in mail. I ordered it probably the day before yesterday and it literally came in so quickly. I adore the shipping on their website, natashadenona.com. Please use my code Anastasia15 if you order anything from their website. I highly recommend purchasing from their website rather than Sephora because the shipping is fast, the shipping is so secure, nothing ever came broken from their website, and also you could get 15% off with my code. But anyways, today's video is going to be all about this new gorgeousness from my favorite brand ever. And if you like eyeshadow palettes, if you like Natasha Denona, if you like romantic color stories, if you like makeup, stick around. This is going to be a fun one. We're going to be talking about this palette in detail, looking at some swatches, as well as compare this palette and the shades to the existing palettes in the collection. I have a large Natasha Denona collection. I do not have every palette possible, but I do have quite a bit of pink romantic color story palettes. So we're gonna have to do some digging here. This is the new Mini Rose Eyeshadow Palette by Natasha Denona. This is the box it comes in. Here on the back, you can see the shade names, and this retails for $27. Obviously, if you use a code, mine or any other creator, I suggest you use a code because you can get some money off of this purchase. I did put an order for this palette as well as a lip crayon because this is a part of her I Need a Rose collection. That collection includes 3 lip combos, including lip crayons, lipsticks, and lip glosses. And I myself owned a lipstick and a gloss from one of those, which is going to be the shade Calla. This is what I'm wearing right now, but I did not own any crayons from that collection. And their lip crayons, think lip liners, are in my opinion the most long wear in the entire makeup industry. So I adore Natasha Denona lip liners, and I had to purchase this one to complete a set. So I put an order for the Mini Rose palette as well as the Calla lip crayon. As you can see, this is the lip combo. The lip gloss is kind of almost gone, but that's what happens with lip glosses. Not a big deal at all. I kind of love this combo. I think that the peony combo is going to be more pink if you want to kind of continue this pink romantic color story. However, I do like a little bit of neutral vibe with this combo. Anyways, back to the palette. We are going to have 5 shades here. We're going to have 3 creamy mattes, 1 duochrome shade, and 1 sparkling glittery shade, right? So we have the shade Golden Rose, which is going to be this duochrome shade. No, this duochrome shade. I always mess it up. Opart, which is going to be the matte shade, Flamingo matte shade, Psychedelic, that glittery sparkly shade, and Andy, another matte shade. All of these shades are already existing shades in the Natasha Denona universe, but I want to mention something here, okay? So I didn't know it when I purchased the palette, but obviously I did some research, and 3 shades that are in this palette are in another palette that I already own. So the shades are Opart, this dark brown, Andy, this muted dusty rose, as well as Psychedelic, this beautiful glittery gorgeous pink. So these shades already exist in a palette, and we're going to compare the two. But what is interesting, I vividly remember, because I know and love that palette. The palette is retro. The shades Andy and Opart in that palette are in another formula. They're in Natasha Denona's Cream 2 Matte formula, and these are just matte. So in my opinion, that kind of justifies me purchasing this palette because the formulas are quite different. A matte and a Cream 2 powder formula from Natasha Denona are very different formulas. So having this beautiful dark shade in a completely matte formula is really is nice. I love it. I love it. I'm excited about it. The other 2 shades, Golden Rose and this shade kind of light matte here called Flamingo, are existing in other Natasha Denona palettes. I have it written down somewhere. The shade Flamingo, which is going to be this super light matte, exists in her big green brown eyeshadow palette, the 28 panner, and in palette 13 out of her old 5 panners. So unless you're a die-hard fan from day one, you don't have those. I don't have those. If you do, make your own decision. That shade exists in those 2. And again, this shade Golden Rose exists in a big 28 panner purple blue palette, and also in palette 8 out of the OG old 5 panners. If you have those, also consider that. The other 3 are in the palette retro, like I mentioned before. Got that out of the way, which is wonderful. So this is a very beautiful, gorgeous, romantic romantic color story. Reminds me of Pat McGrath, reminds me of Valentine's Day, reminds me of a ton of palettes that Natasha came out with, like Retro, like Mini Starlet, like Star, all of those. Let's get to the swatches. I still am really happy that I have picked it up because it's small, it's cute, it's travel friendly, and I love this color story. And pink shades look good on me, so that's why I really wanted it. Enough talking, right? Let's get to the swatches. I'm gonna start with the shade Andy. Immediately feels so different from the Andy from Retro palette. This is that kind of dusty pink matte shade. Beautiful, gorgeous, stunning. Adore shades like this that are so muted. Next shade is going to be Psychedelic, which I remember loving this shade because it's very, very glittery, sparkly, and kind of like creates that really, really fun vibe. If you put this all over your lid, you can see how absolutely stunning that shade is. We're gonna go over to the shade Flamingo, which I am not a big fan of shades like this because they, frankly speaking, are not going to do anything to me. It is not going to be bright enough for me to use in my inner corner to brighten it up. I think so. I will try it. So this shade is not going to do anything for me, but a lot of people like these shades, like to put it all over the lid or kind of highlight under the brow if you're a little bit deeper complexion than mine. But yeah, this is the shade Flamingo. I would say it's like a bone color shade, but with a pinkish undertone. Then we get to one of my favorite shades, Opart. I love this shades in the cream to powder formula, but this I bet I'm gonna love even more. So this is kind of grayish cool tone brown. Adore. Its swatch is not too deep, but we're obviously going to play around and see how beautiful, how deep it goes. And then lastly, the shade Golden Rose, which is a duochrome. So this is the shade that I've never like seen or touched, and it reminds me of one of the shades from another palette and from a Huda Beauty palette. I love this shade. I love golden to pink duochromes. It is not by any means a crazy duochrome effect, but it is a classic Natasha Denona metallic duochrome. Let's just put it that way. Obviously, this is way more opaque and like fun and glittery if you're into that. But here's the entire color story of the Mini Rose Natasha Denona palette. What do we think about it? I can definitely work with this. I like it. I think it's cute. Do I need a palette like this? Absolutely not. Do I have 100,000 palettes like this? Absolutely yes. Am I still happy and so excited to play with this? Yes, because it's my favorite brand. So what can you do? Let's get into the application, and then at the end of the video, I will compare it to my existing palettes. I don't have any of the ones where the shades Flamingo and Golden Rose are, because those are, again, super old. Like I wasn't even into makeup back then. I got into the brand in like 2020. And then the other three are in my existing palette, and those we will compare. And then just overall the color story compared to the other pink Natasha Denona palettes in my collection. While I'm applying primer, I did watch her videos, her tutorials on YouTube. She always posts YouTube tutorials on every new product, and I kind of wasn't inspired by any of them. Typically, I really always want to recreate one of the looks that she creates, but this time it was kind of like not very exciting to me. So I'm not gonna recreate her looks. I'm just gonna create my own, utilizing all 5 shades. And also, I wanted to mention that most of the things that I'm wearing on my face are by Natasha Denona. Obviously, I will put all of the things that I'm wearing in the caption description below. So check that out for links for these products, because I think that the base is really, really cute. Really cute, not gonna lie. So I applied my primer by Juvia's Place. I always use eyeshadow primer because my eyes are hooded and my skin on the eyes is oily, so I kind of have to. And I'm gonna go in with a big fluffy brush, a blending brush. This is Blending Bestie from MOTD Cosmetics. I have a hooded eye brush set with them. Check it in the description below as well. But yeah, these brushes are super good for hooded eyes. This is the biggest one of them. So I'm only going to use it to pick up this shade Flamingo. It's so powdery, but it means it's pigmented. And I'm used to Natasha Denona mattes, so I know that they are like that. And then I'm going to basically kind of run it in my crease and see if that gives me any color. Honestly, my eye primer is so light that this does give a little bit, but it's basically my skin tone. So this shade is really useless for me, but if you have a lighter complexion, you could use it as your first shade in your blend, like the lightest shade in your blend. If you have a deeper complexion, you can use it as a highlight shade under your brow or in the inner corner. I adore matte inner corners, so that could totally be your vibe. To me personally, this is kind of meh. I'm excited to try the other 2 mattes, so I'm gonna go with the shade Andy now, and I'm gonna grab just like a smaller brush. This is by BK Beauty 211, another brand that I adore for hooded eyes. And I'm gonna go ahead and just pick this up and start finally building my color here. I always start on the outer portion because I want to see how high I need to go with my hooded eyes. So I open my eyes completely and then kind of start blending it inwards and creating that gradient. I actually love the shade Andy, and I love this matte formula more than cream to powder formula because my eyelids, they have a bit of texture, like fine lines and stuff like that, and cream to powder formula sometimes can look a little bit textured, so that adds that texture to my eyelid, and I prefer the creamy matte formula. Creamy matte and cream to powder. Gosh, I hope you understand what I mean. If you're watching this and you don't know Natasha Denona formulas, this will literally sound like a foreign language. Might as well be speaking Russian. Anyways, this is that shade, a very pretty, very gorgeous, light, dusty, mauvey, grayish, dirty pink. Absolutely adore this. Absolutely in love. So cute. I will also use this on my lower lash line, and I'm just gonna pinch this brush because it can't be bothered to pick up a smaller brush and just run it on my lower lash line. We're going for like a romantic glam look, and we're going to be utilizing all 5 shades, but obviously the first shade Flamingo was a little bit underwhelming for me, but at the same time, you know, it is what it is. It's rare that I will find a 5-pan eyeshadow palette where I can use all 5 shades and be happy with them, so this is good enough. Again, the blendability is amazing. It's Natasha Denona matte formula. What do you expect? It is absolutely gorgeous. It works on its own, blends itself. So I'm going to take the smallest brush in my blend. This is again BK Beauty A502, and I'm going to deepen my outer corner with this darkest shade in this palette, which is the shade Opart. I don't really know what this word means or how to pronounce it. Opart, I never knew ever since the retro palette. But I will pack it on the outer portion and see if this can actually be like really deep, because it seemed to me when I swatched it that it doesn't really go that deep. You know what I mean? It's not like an almost black brown. It's a brown, but I would say it's a mid-tone brown. Like if somebody has a darker complexion, this will not be showing well on them. You know what I mean? For me, it works perfectly well for the darkening the outer corner, but again, I am a light, pale as snow, light as day. I don't know. My complexion is super light, so it's not like a bother for me to deepen up the outer corner, but for somebody with a darker complexion, this could be an issue. And again, I'm going to run it on my lower lash line as well. Actually, I'm going to take an even smaller brush, something like this, like a pencil brush or just something really, really tiny. This is again BK Beauty 204, and I'm going to run it on the lower lash line just to kind of smoke it out, and then go back to the pink shade to make sure that I'm happy with the blend. And as you can see, I'm applying the dark shade really high up, because if you don't, with hooded eyes, you just won't even notice it. So I kind of have to go really high up so that you can see the gradient and all of the colors there. I think it looks really pretty. I will add a little bit more pink, a little bit more depth, and come back to the shimmers. So we're going to start with the duochrome golden rose shade, and I'm going to apply it through the center of my lid to see how it works on its own. I'm not the biggest fan of duochromes like this because I have a ton of indie eyeshadow palettes in my collection. So I have duochromes that are duochroming, if you know what I mean, that are out there, that are going to literally take your breath away. So when I have something like this, yes, it's nice, it's pretty, but it's not going to make me amazed or anything like that. However, saying that, I think that it looks super beautiful with these shades. I think that the curation of the shades in this palette is actually incredible. They look really beautiful together. Considering they're like from different palettes and different vibes, I think that they all look really beautiful together for like a romantic, maybe even bridal look. I really enjoy this. I'm gonna go with the shade Psychedelic, which is that glittery shade that I actually adore. I remember using it so much from the retro palette when I just got it, and I'm gonna pat it kind of in the inner corner, kind of until the very middle of the eye, and I'm going to then fix it with a brush because my nails will not allow me to go in that very inner corner. But you can immediately see how sparkly and how impactful that is compared to the shade next to it. I'm going to pick it up a little bit and apply it in the inner corner. You can also wet your eyeshadow to have it be more impactful, or use a finger like I did. This one has, I would say, like pink and blue particles as well. So this is a very interesting and beautiful shade. I actually really like it. I kind of want to clean up a little bit under here. So I'm going to take my powder puff and some powder and actually do a little bit of this, just kind of press that in to make make sure that that line is really clean. What do we think about this eyeshadow look? I basically used all of the shades, and this is kind of what you can come up with. Can't really go any deeper than this, which is something that is a little bit disappointing, but at the same time, I bought this palette for myself. It looks beautiful on me, but to those of you who have a little bit of a deeper complexion, or a lot deeper complexion than mine, this probably won't really show on you. Just want to put it out there. I think it's super beautiful, romantic, pretty. All shades worked beautifully, just as I expected from Natasha Denona. I didn't check if this was made in Italy, but I am going to, yeah, it is made in Italy. I am going to assume that it's made in Italy, like all of her eyeshadow palettes. I think it looks really pretty. I'm gonna go ahead and add a wing eyeliner, a lash, finish the other eye, and then come back for the comparisons and my final thoughts. All right, team, so here is the final result, the final look. I did the other eye. I used a really dramatic pair of lashes. This is by Kiss, their Rebel line, and this style is Main Character, I believe. Let me guess, Main Character, which definitely feels like Main Character. I feel like this beautiful, like, huge lash just honestly makes it so glam, and I've missed glam days, so this is really up my alley. I am obsessed with this look. Overall, I want to say, well, first of all, confession, I did not have a gloss at the beginning of the video. I forgot to put it on. I started filming at like 9 a.m. I was barely awake, so this is the lip combo with a gloss. The gloss is good. It's not disappearing like that. Overall, I want to say that I really like this palette because I am a big fan of the brand, okay? Unless it's going to be really gross, I'm not gonna hate on it. I just want to put it out there. I'm a huge fan of the brand, and every time I travel, I like to pack with me one neutral palette, one colorful palette, and one rosy toned pink palette. And so far in my collection, I only have one travel size rosy pink palette, which is the Charlotte Tilbury Pillow Talk Dreams palette. And that one kind of leans a little bit warm. That one is gorgeous, but I think that this will be my new go-to for traveling when I want to pack a little pinkety palette. So I'm grateful for that. I'm happy I picked it up. I think it looks really, really cute and really, really gorgeous. I think it works on its own, and that's what I love about these mini palettes. If we're talking about the mini Starlet or something like that that came out semi-recently or last year, that didn't have enough depth in it for me, so I didn't pick it up. This one does. I can just create a romantic rosy look using this matte and one of the shimmers, or I can create a full glam look like this using the darker brown here. That I love. Now let's compare it to the other palettes that I have. So first I wanted to look at all of the pink palettes that I have. Let's start with the Natasha Denona Love Face palette. This is a 5-panner, and if I put the 2 and 2 together, we can immediately see that the Love Face palette is super, super vibrant versus the new one. This one leans very, very dusty, muted, more wearable color story. And honestly, I don't even see a shade that we could compare here. If we're talking about Andy and Juliet, they're way, way, way different. This one is deeper and muted. This one is a bright pink. So I'm not even bothering swatching these. If you have this palette will not have any dupes for sure. The next palette I immediately thought of was the Natasha Denona Love palette, which is her pink eyeshadow palette, right? So if we compare these two, actually I see that the shade Flamingo could be compared to this shade first, so I am going to swatch those two. Other than that, shade Soul and shade Andy are very different because Soul is way more deep and vibrant, but I will probably also compare the two just for funsies, and probably that's it. This palette has a lot of reds in it, has a lot of pinks, has a lot of pigment, purples, gold, so this is really not a dupe as well, but I will compare the shades just for funsies. So we have the shade First here and the shade Flamingo here. Shade First has a little bit more of a pink undertone. Shade Flamingo is a little bit brighter. Also, you can see how the formula changed. I bought this one years ago, and this is already maybe like drying up, or just the formula was not as good as this one. Actually, these shades are dupes, but also in my opinion, these shades are completely useless, so I wouldn't even care. I'm gonna swatch the Andy and Soul though, even though I know these are gonna be so different. Oh yeah, this is like red, you know? However, it's supposed to be like a dusty pink, but it's very, very vibrant. So this is Andy from Mini Rose. This is Soul from Love. Yep, that palette is officially expired. It's drying up, but guess what? I am never going to get rid of it. I love using this on Valentine's though. All right, so because I don't have the Mini Starlet, Mini Star, or whatever those other mini palettes that kind of look like this, I can't compare those, which brings us to the last palette that I have that has the same color story, which is the Red retro palette. I would say that this palette is the older sister of this palette. They do give me the same vibe. They can be probably used together. 3 shades are in this palette from this palette, but again, the formula is a little bit different, so we're going to compare them. So as you can see, shade Andy is right here, right? I will put them next to each other. The dusty pink shade Andy is cream to powder formula in the bigger retro palette, and creamy matte formula in the small mini rose palette. Same with this deep brown. They look so different, honestly. O part in the retro palette is cream to powder. O part in the mini rose is creamy matte. Let's compare them. Oh, and then psychedelic. This one's probably the same, but I'll compare them just for the funsies again. Let's go ahead and do that. So these shades look so different. This is the matte shade from mini rose. This is the cream to powder shade from retro. It's honestly giving more purple, right? So retro, mini rose, so different. I think it's just the formula. Like if you make it cream to powder, the cream in it makes it look a little bit more lilac. And it's just, if you prefer matte formula or cream to powder formula, you know, it's just about the preference. I don't feel bad about buying this palette while having this palette. First of all, this is one of my favorite palettes from Denona. I adore this palette and the shades in it. I wasn't even expecting to love it so much, but I adore it. So I'm happy that I have it. And I'm happy that I have this one because I can take it traveling with me. But let's move on to the shade O part, which I think is going to have the same effect in terms of how different the two shades are. Wow, that is interesting to see. Cream to powder formula looks way deeper. And that is actually a thing about the cream to powder formula. You can build it up easily versus the creamy matte. I wish they made it a little deeper. It's good, but when you have a 5-panner for $27, like I can say that I wished something was different. Okay. So this is the mini rose palette. Beautiful shade nonetheless. This is the retro palette. Look at that opacity. So I would say if you have a deeper complexion and you're looking at this romantic color store and you're like, I kind of want that, I would suggest the retro palette. This shade would work way better on you than this one. How beautiful. Very interesting that these are so different. I was not expecting this, but it's good to know. Good to know. Hopefully this was helpful to some of you. Let's swatch the shade Psychedelic, which is that glittery shimmery shade, and I assume it's gonna look the same unless my palette is so expired, but it shouldn't be. It came out in what, 2021? I bought it right away. Yeah, these look exactly the same. Psychedelic. Gorgeous shade nonetheless. But yeah, both palettes have it now. And there you have it. Here are all of the dupes, all of the swatches, all of the details on the new Mini Rose palette by Natasha Denona. Let me know what you think. Do you like this look? Would you wear this look? How are you feeling about this launch? Are you picking it up? Are you not? What are you picking up from Natasha Denona? Use code Anastasia15 for any products off of their website. Thank you so much for watching, you guys. This was so fun. It's been a minute since I had a chance to review a product from Natasha. I always love doing that. I love her products and I really love how this look came out. So I will leave everything else I'm wearing on my face in the caption below. And thank you so much for watching. I love you guys and I will see you in the next one. Bye.